I never thought I'd fall for someone who didn't belong to me, and I swear to you when I met Ethan, I didn't know he was taken. Not officially, not technically. That's how he phrased it. He said, it's complicated. We're basically done, just still living under the same roof while we untangle things. And I believed him, because I wanted to. We met on Uplink, a freelance platform for creatives. I was a brand copywriter, and he was the marketing lead at a boutique agency. Our first conversation was about a skincare ad campaign. Our second? About music.by the third. We weren't talking about work anymore. His messages always came late. Past PM, thoughtful, warm, playful. He'd ask me about the weirdest things, what color I thought jealousy would be if it were a paint swatch, what childhood smell made me nostalgic, what I'd do if I woke up invisible. I used to smile when I saw his name pop up. Ethan, I'm Uplight Labs, like my own little secret. The chats weren't flirty at first, but they were intimate, like he was peeling off a layer of me every night, gently, carefully. He never rushed. I respected that. He said, I don't want this to feel like every other mistake in my life. I want to be present for this. For you. It sounded so sincere, so wounded. That's the thing about people like Ethan. They don't manipulate you with threats or pressure. They manipulate you with softness, with words that sound like healing when they're actually carving you open. When I asked why he hadn't moved out yet, he told me he was saving up for the clean break, said he didn't want to start over while still dragging legal stuff behind him. I understood. I'd been through a messy breakup myself the year before. I knew what it was like to feel stuck, physically gone, emotionally entangled. So I gave him space. We kept talking, and after 2 months, we moved to Zoom. It was supposed to be for project work, but our cameras stayed on long after the copy was approved, the decks were sent, the invoices filed. One night, after a long call about nothing and everything, I asked him, so what are we doing? Are we just friends with good lighting? He smiled, that kind of sideways, knowing smile that makes you feel like the smartest girl in the room. He said, you're the first thing that feels real in a long time. I don't know what we're doing, but I want to keep doing it, and that was enough for me. I wasn't looking for a title, not then. I just wanted to feel like I mattered to someone again. I'd been out of a real relationship for almost a year, casual dating here and there, apps that led nowhere. I'd stopped expecting intimacy, real connection to happen without a catch, and Ethan made me feel like the exception to that rule. He never flirted the way you'd expect. No over-the-top compliments, no sexting. He told me I had a brain he couldn't stop thinking about, that he dreamed in my sentence structures, that I was a quiet storm. I wrote that one down in my notes app when he called me beautiful. It was after I'd ranted for 20 minutes about brand tone inconsistencies and user experience flaws. He said, you're beautiful when you're pissed off at capitalism. What woman doesn't fall a little for that? We had rules, not official ones, but understood. We only Zoomed at night, never during the day. He always had his camera framed tight, just his face and part of a gray wall. He said his roommate was messy. Later, he clarified it was his ex-roommate. Even later, I'd learn her name, Camille, but that wouldn't be for months. Once, I asked if I could see the rest of his apartment, just casually. I think I joked that I wanted to see if he had real books or just a copy of The Subtle Art of Not Giving a F. He laughed, said, I'll show you when it's mine again. Right now, it's a battlefield disguised as a lease agreement. I accepted that. Because again, I wanted to. Looking back, there were signs. He never answered my video calls during the day. He never texted me good morning, only good night. When I once tried to send him a gift, just a mug with a quote he liked. He said, "Not to this address." It's complicated. Everything, it seemed, was complicated. But love makes you forgive confusion. It makes you color in gaps with hope. It makes you rewrite facts in your own handwriting so they feel safer. And I was in love, not with his situation, but with who he was with me. And maybe that's the hardest part to admit, that even when the cracks started to show, I still clung to the idea that maybe, just maybe, I was the one woman he wouldn't lie to, even if I already was. We never made it official. There were no labels, no anniversary, no photo together to mark the beginning of what I thought was becoming something real. But we had rules. They weren't spoken. Not exactly. They just appeared, slid into the space between us like furniture you can remember buying but somehow ended up arranging your life around. Rule 1. No video calls during the day. He said the lighting in his apartment was awful in the mornings, that he hated how his face looked in natural light. I joked, "That's the most dramatic thing you've ever said." He laughed and replied, "You haven't seen me before coffee." I told myself that made sense. Rule 2. No unannounced calls. Ever. He said he was a private person, that phone calls made him anxious. He preferred to plan everything: time, tone, context. It's about emotional regulation, he said. I'm trying to be better. Rule 3. No social media. I couldn't tag him in memes. Couldn't follow him on Instagram. He didn't have Facebook, or said he didn't. His Twitter account was locked, but he never tweeted. He said he hated the algorithm. Said it made him feel exposed. I told myself that meant he was emotionally intelligent. Looking back now, I realize he was just hiding me, but in the moment, it felt like I was being led into a secret part of his world, one where things were slower, more intentional, more sacred. The problem with sacred things, though, is that they're often off limits to everyone else, and eventually, that started to wear on me. 3 months in, we'd still never met in person. We lived 2 cities apart. He said he wanted our first time to be special, not rushed, not tainted by logistics or bad traffic or stress. I waited. I made excuses, even when he canceled our first planned weekend together because he had a family emergency. I believed him because he sent a voice note, his voice tight, low, apologetic. I know this isn't fair. I want to see you so badly. You don't know how much I rehearse it in my head. Just give me a little more time. I want to show up as the man you deserve. God, that kind of manipulation doesn't come with shouting. It comes with soft tones, with poetic apologies, with guilt-flavored compliments like, "You're too good for what I can give you right now." That made me stay, because in my head, I was the only one he'd admit that to. I was the one who made him feel safe enough to be vulnerable, and maybe I was, but I wasn't the only one, not even close. There were cracks, small ones, but when you're in love, you call them quirks, like how he'd turn off his camera when he walked around his apartment, or how, in 4 months, I'd never once seen him in a different room, always the same tight corner with the same gray wall, or how, when I asked for a selfie on my birthday, he sent a photo that looked cropped. When I teased him about it, "What? You're hiding dirty laundry or a murder?" He said, "No, just hiding the mess of my life. Trust me, you don't want to see it." He always had a reason, and I always wanted to believe it. That's the thing about deception. It doesn't need to be a full lie. It just needs to be convenient enough for someone who wants to believe it, and I wanted to. God, I wanted to believe. I wasn't foolish, that this wasn't another man stringing me along until something better came along or until his guilt finally caught up. I wasn't naive. I was just emotionally invested in the version of him he let me see. He made me feel chosen, not chased, not rushed, but chosen. And when you've gone long enough feeling invisible, being chosen, even if only in a confined space with rules, is intoxicating. But eventually, I started to feel it. The weight of all the things I wasn't allowed to ask. The nights he disappeared without explanation. The birthdays I didn't know. The silence he called processing. I brought it up once, carefully. I didn't want to sound needy. I said, "Sometimes I feel like you live in a different life, one I'm not allowed to touch." He replied, "That's because I haven't built a bridge yet. I don't want you to walk across until it's stable." I should have heard that for what it was. "I'm not letting you in," but I took it as, he cares enough to protect me, so I waited, even when the second planned meetup got cancelled because he was sick. Even when the third weekend fell through because he had a sudden work trip. Even when the fourth, after all that hope, was ghosted without a word. No message, no call, no explanation, just nothing for 48 hours, then a text. "Sorry, things blew up. I'll explain soon." He never did, but when he finally called on Zoom at 11:52 p.m., like clockwork, I answered, because even when your gut screams run, your heart sometimes whispers, "Just one more time." It was a Tuesday. I remember that because I had just submitted a client project that drained me 7 hours of back and forth edits over a 2-sentence product tagline. I hadn't heard from Ethan since Saturday. 3 days of silence. Nothing unusual for him, but by then, even I was starting to feel it. That weight, that unspoken knowing. The text came at 6:32 p.m. "Jump on Zoom at 9 if you're free. I want to show you something." My heart jumped. No, sorry for the ghosting. No context. Just that, I replied. Of course. I'll be ready, of course, because I always was. I spent way too long choosing what hoodie to wear. Brushed my hair twice. Lit a candle, then blew it out because it felt too romantic. Applied lip balm and immediately wiped it off. Ridiculous rituals, all for a screen that only showed me from the collarbone up. At 9:02 p.m., the link came. I clicked. His face loaded slowly, pixelated, grainy. The usual dim yellow light from the desk lamp to his left. He looked tired, but softer than usual. His hoodie was wrinkled. He hadn't shaved. I said, "Hey." He smiled, but something about it felt delayed, like his mouth moved before the emotion could catch up. "Hey you," he said. "Sorry I've been MIA. I've had something on my mind. Thought we could talk tonight." I nodded, tried to steady my breath. I thought, this is it. Maybe he's finally ready. Maybe he'll say it. "I want to be with you." But before I could ask anything, there was movement behind him, fast, subtle, a shadow, and then clear as day. A woman stepped into frame. She wasn't looking at the camera. She didn't even seem to notice it was on. She wore a long t-shirt, no pants. Her hair was up in a bun. She carried a bowl of popcorn in one hand and a phone in the other. Then she said it. "Babe, which episode were we on again?" "Babe," she called. Him babe. My lungs stopped working. Ethan's face froze, literally and figuratively. The Zoom video stuttered, but not enough to hide what had happened. His eyes widened. He yanked the camera down with a jolt, muting it mid-motion. The screen went black. Just like that, I sat there, staring at myself in the now empty Zoom window. My reflection looked pale, stupid, small. I didn't move, not for 10 seconds, not for 30. Then finally, a message popped up in the chat box. "I can explain. Please just stay." I didn't reply. Another one followed. "She's not my girlfriend." I swear, it's not what it looked like. I stared at the screen until the words blurred into gray static. She called him babe. She walked around his apartment in an oversized t-shirt and no pants. No roommate calls you that. No ex says it like it's still warm in her mouth. No one pretends that well. He called me on Zoom, with his camera on, knowing she was there, and the worst part, he didn't forget to mute. He just didn't care enough to protect me. I closed the laptop slowly, sat in the dark, my chest burned. But my face was dry. No tears. Not yet, because the pain hadn't landed. Not fully. It was still hovering, circling, waiting for me to open the door and let it in. I picked up my phone and scrolled back through our messages. The voice notes, the late-night poems, the "you're the only one who sees me" declarations. I played one of them on speaker. I don't talk to anyone the way I talk to you. You're the calm I didn't know I needed. What a line, what a lie. I stared at the screen for what felt like hours, watching the little voice note bar pulse with fake sincerity, and then my phone lit up, a text from an unknown number. I don't know who you are, but I saw your name on his chat. I'm his girlfriend, and I think we need to talk. I didn't respond to her message that night, the one that read, I don't know who you are, but I saw your name on his chat. I'm his girlfriend, and I think we need to talk because… What could I say? Hi, I didn't know, but I know now, and I stayed anyway. Instead, I stared at the text until my screen dimmed and locked itself. Then I shut off my phone and went to bed with a stomach full of concrete. I told myself I wouldn't answer Ethan again, that I'd block him, that I'd pretend he never existed. But you already know I didn't do that. He texted me the next afternoon. Please, don't talk to her. It's not what you think. And I wanted to scream, because it was exactly what I thought. She wasn't a roommate. She wasn't an ex. She was the woman who made popcorn in his kitchen in a t-shirt that smelled like him. But I didn't scream. I just stared at the text and typed 3 words. Tell me everything. He called me. Voice only. Of course. No video. Not this time. And for 47 minutes, he spun a new web. He said things were rocky with Camille, that they'd broken up before, but moved back in together during lockdown and never quite untangled again. He said they weren't technically together, that they hadn't slept together in months, that she still loved him, but he wasn't in love with her. He said he didn't know how to let her go, didn't want to hurt her, didn't want to blow up her world. Then came the final blow. But I never lied about how I feel about you. That was the line that broke me, because even after all the lies, all the cowardice, I wanted that to be true. I wanted to believe that somehow, in the middle of all the damage, the part between him and me had been real. I didn't reply that day, but I didn't block him either, and that silence, he filled it, text by text, voice note by voice note, each one more desperate, more poetic, more familiar, the same language he'd used to pull me in the first time, now repackaged as an apology. You're not the other woman. You're the only one who really sees me. And the worst part, I believed him, even knowing what I knew, even hearing her voice in the background, even reading her message again at M, burned into my memory. I didn't go back with demands. I didn't ask him to choose. I just let it continue. I let him call me late at night, let him whisper things I knew weren't just mine, let myself be the secret he wrapped in silence and dim lighting. And each time I said yes, each time I didn't block him, each time I laughed at one of his jokes or said, I miss you too, I hated myself more. I wasn't innocent anymore, not just emotionally, but morally. I had the information, I had the proof, and I still stayed. I stopped sleeping properly. I'd wake up with texts from him or worse, from her, short ones. Cold. He lied to both of us. He said he was at work last night. He wasn't. Do you still believe him? I never answered her, because shame makes you cowardly. It wraps around your voice and steals it. I wanted her to scream at me. I wanted her to send screenshots, threaten me, ruin me. Because maybe then I'd finally stop. But she didn't. She disappeared. And that made it worse. Ethan and I kept going. We never talked about her. Never used her name. It was like our connection existed in a vacuum, untouched by the consequences, orbiting just outside, until one night. He didn't call, didn't text, didn't respond to mine, and after 24 hours of silence, I felt it. It was over, not because I ended it, but because she had, or maybe he just moved on again. Maybe I was only ever the in-between, and now someone else was getting the midnight voice notes, the slow compliments, the digital hand-holding. The cycle continued, without me. There was no goodbye. No final message, no grand apology. No, I can't do this anymore. Just silence. Ethan disappeared the same way he had appeared, quietly, behind a screen. One day, the text stopped, the voice notes vanished, his profile photo on the messaging app turned gray, his last seen timestamp froze like a ghost, and me? I sat there, phone in hand, rereading the last thing he ever sent me. I'll call you tomorrow. He never did. At first, I checked my phone every hour, told myself maybe he lost his charger. Maybe something happened. Maybe she found everything and destroyed his phone, his apps, his whole life. But eventually, I stopped waiting, because deep down, I knew he didn't lose anything. He just let go, and he let go of me the way people throw away wrappers used. Emptied, no longer necessary. There's a special kind of pain that comes when you realize you weren't even the second choice. You were the bridge, the distraction, the in-between, the thing they used to numb one goodbye and survive the next hello. Weeks passed, then months. No contact from him. No contact from Camille. She never responded again after that last message, and honestly, I didn't deserve a response. What would I have said? I'm sorry I helped wreck your world. I stayed because I was weak, not cruel. I believed him, even when you were begging me not to. There's no closure in betrayal. There's just the echo of what you let happen, and you carry it, quietly, alone. I still work freelance, still take Zoom calls, still smile through copy edits and pitch decks and pretend none of this changed me, but it did, because now every time I turn on my webcam, I check the background twice, not for clutter, but for ghosts, for shadows of women like Camille, women who exist just off screen, loving someone who's loving someone else behind a pane of glass and a muted mic. Sometimes I forget what he looked like, but I remember his voice, the way he said you're the calm I didn't know I needed, the way he whispered goodnight like it meant something. I don't replay those voice notes anymore, but I didn't delete them either. They sit in a folder named Archived, because I can't quite let them go. And yet, I never open them. It's like looking at photos from a funeral and pretending it was just a birthday party. You lie to yourself because the truth is too sharp, and the truth is this: I was the other woman. I knew it, and I stayed anyway. And then I was discarded. No grand heartbreak, no public fallout, just silence. I only exist now in the chat history of a man who never chose me, and the memory of a woman who never got to scream at me. I live with that every time the Zoom camera light turns green.